And now it's a pleasure to introduce Maurice Shamash. Born in Baghdad, Iraq, he was in the Israeli Air Force while living in Israel, did his undergraduate studies at the University of London in England, received a Master's of Science from the University of New Hampshire, did research for NASA moon launch program at MIT in Boston, and later he attended Columbia University in New York City, earned a mechanical engineer degree when he was on the Doctor of Science program in engineering science. For 30 years, he worked extensively on classified Department of Defense programs and was awarded several invention and patents issued by the United States Patent Office. He's also published and presented several papers in the United States and abroad. So let's give a warm JMM welcome to Maurice Shamash.
Thank you, Dr. Robert Keane. It was him who actually called me to come here 2 months ago and do this presentation, so I'm grateful to you. And certainly I want to recognize all the friends, some of them relatives who are here. This is really great, and I'm very honored that you are here. I just wanted to show this because it's very important to see where the Middle East is. You can see Iraq right there, and it doesn't show the Tigris and the Euphrates. Turkey was in the north, and Iran in the east, and Egypt is right there. So Iraq had mainly 3 cities. Mosul is in the north, Baghdad is in the center, and Basra is in the south. And the Persian Gulf is right here, and many times we have our own Navy in there, the U.S. Navy. My father was actually born in Mosul, right there, and Baruch Shamash. And he, unfortunately, his father died when he was, no, not his father. His mother died when he was 11. And he was very attached to his mother. And when his father used to take him to school, he didn't realize that my father used to actually leave school and go to the cemetery and go to the grave and keep crying and crying. So for days and weeks, he really didn't attend school. So when his father found out, he said to him, either you go to school or you come to my work and work with me. So he worked there for 5 years or 6 years. But by the age of 11, when he was 18, and he decided to go to Baghdad. He knew that's where the business is. And he started working with cotton material for clothing, textiles, and then branched into real estate. I do not think he finished high school, but I can say he was a genius. He finally brought his father and stepmother, also to Baghdad. So when he was established a little bit, or more than a little bit, he married my mother, Eliza, and between them they had 9 children. You can see here, this is my oldest brother Shaul, the next brother Eliyahu, and this is Yaakov, David, and this is my sister Samra. Samra is the name of my grandmother, which is the real mother of my father, and she is after her. And she played a big role in my life, and that's me when I was probably 6 months, and then 4 other children came afterwards. So I will say, when it was time for my sister Samra to go to nursery, maybe she was 5 or something, my mother decided to send me with her so that I will be less troublesome. And I really was very inquisitive, that I will get myself into trouble in many, and I'm not going to talk about many of the injuries that I got and things like that. So my sister used to actually hold my hand and take me to school. So our house was right in the center of Baghdad. And when I used to walk to school, I used to see a lot of Jewish men sitting on the floor looking for alms for the poor, but they really look like chachamim. We don't say rabbis, we say chachamim in Baghdad. They became my friends because every time I have a few pennies, I used to give it to them. So this house that I was born in, as I said, it was in the center of Baghdad, was quite large, and it had a big area, and it's open to the sky. So the second floor had all the bedrooms, and we actually, in the summer, we used to sleep on the roof. The roof had a fence, and we used to have some protection. So this house had a mikveh in the basement, and women used to come in, and I was very, very wanting to know what the heck they are doing in that basement. So I'm not going to tell you what I used to do. Okay. So then, now we are, that's me about age 6 or 7, and in the Alliance School Israelite, this is really a top-notch school, and everything was taught in French. And because we are in Iraq, we had to study Arabic. And because I'm Jewish, I had to study Hebrew. But I want to say, by the time I was 7 years old, about this age, they started teaching us English. So I am 7 years old, learning 4 languages, so I can tell you it can be done. So there's a boys' school when we started kindergarten, and there's the girls' school. But when we are in nursery, we are together. So by the time I was this age, every Thursday morning, we used to line up 2 in a row, let's say first grade, second grade, third grade, until the 10th grade. And we used to raise the flag and sing songs for the king. And on top of that, they used to do special thing. They used to teach me every week a song, and they will have 2 chairs, and they put another chair on top, not a chair, a table, and another table on top smaller, and they will actually put me right there on top, because I was little and they can carry me and put me, because I was always 2 years in age less than all the other class. My mother really believed in safety as far as not drowning. So she used to, they used to take us to learn to swim with a trainer, and we used to go, all the youngsters, the minute we become of age that we can swim, we used to cross the Tigris River back and forth in the morning and also in the evening. And the river was so good that in the water we used to have fish. It was the best fish and very kosher. And I'm not going to say it's like rockfish, what we have here, but maybe even better. And people used to swim and take cruises, and very nice. Now I am going to just mention, this is 1905, but every city in Baghdad had these minarets, and the imam, Muslim, used to go up there 3-4 times a day and actually try to call all the people to come for prayers. And but for me, I was going to say that the Iraqi Jews established themselves about 2,700 years ago, and in Iraq. So they actually produced the Babylonian Talmud at that time between 500 and 700 CE. And if you don't know, I'm sure many of you do, Abraham Avinu was born in Baghdad, in Iraq. By World War I, the Jews accounted for 1/3 of Baghdad population, which is really quite large for a percentage. Later, the British received a mandate over Iraq and began to transform it into a modern nation. In 1932, Iraq became an independent state and drew heavily on talented and educated Jews. For example, Yecheskel Sassoon, who is from a prominent family, was actually the Minister of Finance in Baghdad, which is really a very high-level position in the government. Now I want to show you, in 1933, this is Sasson Kaduri, who was our chief rabbi. To me, when he used to walk in a synagogue, he was like such a big man. I used to think he is like the next person to God in the sky. I used to, when he comes in a synagogue and I'm sitting next to my parents, I used to go to him, take his hand and kiss it. So he was so important to the Jewish people. In fact, he is the only one, when we had trouble and we had the pogroms, which I'm going to talk about, and even later after the Exodus, he was the only one that can go to the king and talk to him and ask for any problems we have with the Jews. Or even later, when it became dictatorship and he was still there, he was the spokesperson for us. So I adore him as far as the work he had done. I'll take just a few minutes to show that King Faisal was chosen by the British to actually rule, and he was a very nice man. He liked the Jews. Before him, the Hashemite used to really rule Iraq. And I'll show him here again. He is with the Queen of England, and again, he was a liberal king, and as I said, very nice to the Jews. The Jews were very friendly at that time. We had no problem with the Christians, with the Arabs, with the Kurds. And I want to show the Kurds, they dress differently. They are from the north of Baghdad. And I will mention just one thing in favor of them. When later on in 1971, the second brother of mine was already married, and he had his wife and 3 kids. So he left Baghdad at the middle of the night. He hired a taxi who drove him near the border of Iran, and the Kurds actually saved him. And when he arrived there, they took him over the border, and then by another car, he went to Tehran, stayed there with a Jewish family for about 3 weeks, and then was able to go to Israel with his family. So basically, they saved my brother. And in fact, my brother had to go twice because he was caught the first time and he returned. Of course, my brother left his house, his business, everything. And we'll talk some more about that. So King Ghazi became, so King Faisal I died in 1933. King Ghazi became the king, and unfortunately he died also in 1939, or they say that he died by a car accident, because he was a little bit, I don't want to say womanizer or something, but he used to have his drinks and whatever. So we think maybe he was killed because at that time the war was in Europe, 1939, and there was a little change in the position of Iraq towards the Jews also. So after him was his son. His son was only 4 or 5 years old, and he couldn't be really the king, so they appointed his uncle, the one in the middle there, they appointed his uncle to be the guardian. And King Faisal, the prince, went to England to study and came to the United States. And in fact, we see him here in 1952 with Harry Truman. And that's how it shows the relationship between Iraq, England, and the United States. Just quickly to show this street, we call it Rashid Street, is very important in that it was not like a main street in a small city. This was miles long, and what I like about it is when I was little, if I am in that area, when I was 8 or 9 or 10, I used to go, our barber used to be on that street, and the king, the small one, used to come with a motorcade and all the traffic stops, and I used to actually stand in front of the cars, double parked, and I actually salute the king. And to me, that was really a big deal. And I was actually a happy kid. Here we have just the embassy of America, and here is the center of Baghdad. My father had owned a small building, actually, with offices that he used to rent for business, and he was right in the center of Baghdad. By 1941, Iraqi Jews were entrenched, and they were doing banking, commerce, government, and so on. Then it was the turning point in 1941. I'm going to keep that slide so that I can talk. So in June 1941, the uncle of the king that I showed was actually removed from his position, and a Nazi guy, the prime minister, became Rashid Ali, his name, and he hated the Jews with passion. So on June 1st, 1941, which was Yom Shavuot, so the night before Shavuot, Erev Shavuot, I told you we sleep out on top of the roof, and we were 7 miles away. I forgot to mention something important. So my father, when I was 7, and you saw me at that age, bought a beautiful house about 7 miles out of the city of Baghdad in a very nice area which became very Jewish. And that house was fenced in with about 8 foot high, and it had an iron gate, and the house was pushed in about 40 feet or more. And we used to have a gardener full-time because we had the best flowers you have ever seen. And then next to him we had a room for a cow. My mother always wanted that we drink real milk. So we had a Muslim woman who comes twice a day to milk the cow in the morning and also in the late afternoon. And we used to have also 2 women who helped my mother with one of them for cooking and housekeeping, and the other woman to take care of the little kids and tell us stories at night before we go to bed. So now I'll go back to what happened in 1941, Erev Shavuot. So we realized that there is fires or fumes or people screaming. We didn't know what's going on because, as I said, we were far out in the Saadun district. And in the morning, our gardener, who was with us many years, took all his clothes, put it in a bundle, and put it on his back, and he said, "I'm leaving." And we never saw him again. So then my father had a partner who was a Muslim, his name Ahmed, and he used to manage the warehouse for my father in the middle of the city of Baghdad, near the offices. And he used to come, this Ahmed used to come to our house just like a good friend, and they'll have a drink and schmooze, and I used to be around. And so on this first day of Shavuot, in the morning, when our gardener left, suddenly he shows up at 7 o'clock in the morning. So my mother said to him, "What are you doing here?" He rang the doorbell, and he said, "I just wanted to come." And then he said, I just want to make sure the front door is closed, the gate is locked." And it didn't take an hour and a half after that when 3 policemen with big guns pointed the guns at, so this Ahmed didn't want to come through the front door. He came through the family room and through the side door. And there is a terrace of a few feet, 10 feet or so. And he came in front of them, front of the door. But before that, he said to my mother and father, "Take all the children to the basement and make sure you don't make a noise even." So then he went out to talk to these 3 police officers. And they said, "We are here to kill everybody in this house because this is a Jewish house." He said to them, "How can you kill me? I am a Muslim just like you." It took him a long time to converse with them and recite the Quran to show them that he's really Muslim. And somehow I think he even prepared himself with lots of money. He took all the money from his pockets and gave it to them. "This is a present for you guys." And that's how we were saved. We could have been dead that year. So Be'ezrat Hashem, like they say, things change and happen differently. Now I just want to talk a little bit about the holidays. We were very dedicated Jews, and I can tell you that we did not have Orthodox Jews, conservative Jews, Reform Jews, Hasidic Jews. We had one kind of Jews. We were all observing Jewish laws and kashrut, and never ride a car on Saturday. We walked to synagogue and all that. So I'll go very fast. On Purim, we used to actually dress up just like here, and I will mention something special about Queen Esther later. So my mother used to prepare big dishes for shlach manot, like you give presents. So we used to take it to my uncle, my aunts, and so on. Let's go to Passover, which was one of the very happiest holiday for me, because I think that was the only holiday I used to get new shoes and new shirts or pants or whatever. So I looked forward to it. But most important, we used to have my parents a week before Pesach. They used to go buy a lamb, white lamb, beautiful. And we, the children, we used to love that lamb and bathe him and play with him. But a day before Erev Passover, Seder, the shochet used to come, and our rabbi used to come, and he will kill that lamb, and I used to watch, and I wasn't supposed to. So anyway, he will take, within seconds, the lungs of this lamb and blow it, even though it was still bloody a little bit, and make sure it blows like a balloon. And then he will take his knife and just make a little hole, and then it will deflate. And he used to say, if it doesn't blow up, that means it is not kosher, or the lamb is diseased, and we will not eat it. So kashrut was very important and very healthy for all of us. Now, going to Shavuot, it's similar to here. Here, I know Chizuk Amuna people who are here, we study till about 12 o'clock in sessions and learn different things. In Baghdad, we used to study all night, absolutely all night till morning. In fact, they used to go and have a breakfast, and then they go and do whatever in the synagogue and so on. So that's the difference. On Rosh Hashanah, to me, the most important was I used to look forward to blowing the shofar and getting dressed and going to synagogue, and everybody is running around. So that was Rosh Hashanah, and we used to do slichot also. Yom Kippur was more different. We were 9 children, 3 girls and 6 boys, right? And then my parents, that's 11. So we used to buy 4 chickens and 7 roosters. And before the night before Yom Kippur, Arab Yom Kippur, my father used to take the rooster and take it on top of my house, and he will say, Ze Khalifatach, Ze Kuparatach. I really don't know what these prayers mean, but I know this is instead of you being whatever you have done. But these brachot were very good. On Sukkot, we used to, our house was large, and we used to have in the back a big terrace, and on top of it, we used to have vines of grapes. So we will take about 1/3 of that and put curtains from sheets, and then a door, and two large couches, and a table and chairs. And my brother, sister, we used to have a nap there in the afternoon. But what is good for the children, we didn't have things to decorate. So we made a small bag of fruits, apples, oranges, and pomegranates, and we will hang it for each child of the house. And we used to say, that's mine, you cannot touch it. And we couldn't wait for the end of Sukkot so that we can start eating it. Now, what did I do in the afternoons? I used to be crazy about tennis. I wanted to be playing tennis all the time. And I used to beg my brother to take me play tennis. So I went to my second brother of me, and I was 12 years old, believe that. And I said to him, I am not going to want a penny from my parents. I'm going to have a tennis court built for me, and to call it the Shamash Club, Tennis Club. And my father was abroad, and he had bought a beautiful land about half a mile away from our house, and it had also lots of beautiful flowers. He bought it from a minister in the government, so it was really beautiful. So I got 20 people, brothers, sisters, cousins, and some people from my school, and also some people that I knew they play tennis. So 20, they were lifetime members, and they can play there. Each one, I said, has to give me $70 equivalent to the dinars of Baghdad. So with that money, we hired somebody to give us the ground for the court, and then me and my brother put the chicken wire here so that the balls don't go out, and I was able to play 2 hours every day. So the people who are members can only play 1 hour, and if there is nobody waiting, then they can play longer. And I used to charge them quarter if the racket will be broken, the string, and I used to know how to fix it and everything. So, but I wanted to go to England and actually play in Wimbledon. You could see me here all dressed up like crazy. And I used to, on each June every year, I used to have tournaments, competition, and I used to award trophies to single men, single women, mixed doubles, men doubles, and so on. And I made it really look like a real thing. Here you see me driving a car. I was not even 16. I used to drive in the center of Baghdad, and I wasn't afraid. So I really always put myself in trouble. So I used to put a pillow underneath me to make me tall, to look big. And I used to drive my brothers, sisters to go swim in the, by that time I was the driver. I used to take them and swim in the Tigris River. Here you see me right there. I will talk a little bit. The Alliance was a top-notch school, like I said. So you have to study 10 years. And I used to envy my sister when I was in primary school, elementary school, because she was always better than I am in grades, even though she was in a different school, but we used to see the grades. And I wasn't really a good student. So by the time we finished 10 years in the Alliance, and we passed the French exam at the embassy, the French embassy, and it is the high school for France. So I could have gone there and studied. Also, there is a national exam for the country in Arabic, so we used to do that. So, in French, can you believe we studied geography, physics, chemistry, history? Everything is in French, and that's when we passed the exam. So when the grades came out, when I finished that Alliance School Israelite, the principal called me in the summer, and he said, I want you to come here. I said, what did I do wrong this time, you know? And when I went there, he said to me, you did nothing wrong. I just want to tell you, you were the first one in your class to graduate, and I'm very proud to honor you. So by then, I really became very sophisticated. I want to dress nicely and whatever. Now I want to talk about the Shamash High School. After you finish the Alliance School, you haven't really gotten the certificate for high school for Iraq. So we study here 2 years, and everything here is in English and Arabic, but English was the most important. So we used to pass the matriculation exam for the University of London, and I passed that. And you will see me there. I was 2 years younger than all this crowd, and you will see my sister. I promised you that I will talk about Purim. So they were we were going to do about Queen Esther and Haman and so on. So we were going to do a production in the high school, and they were looking for Queen Esther. Who should be? Would you believe my sister is the one that was Queen Esther? And she was fantastic. People loved her. Some of them even want to marry her. So why are we joined here? Because not many people from the Alliance School, girls' school, wanted to go and study more. So, but few of them, they were very selected, and you had to pass really exams to actually get accepted at the high school of Shamash. Shamash High School was #1 in the country. Once in a while, we used to even accept people who are Muslims. Now, next I want to talk about the Shamash synagogue. Now, my grandfather, David Shamash, he wanted to really, before he died, all he wanted is to have a synagogue in his name. So my father, he's right there, and his stepbrother, they built this beautiful synagogue not far from our house, about half a mile. We used to walk there to synagogue. And the synagogue was so strong, all the walls were from concrete with steel beams and everything. And on the side of the synagogue, they built a nice house for the rabbi and his family. So here you see my second brother, second one, Eliyahu. That's during his wedding. And this one was born afterwards. This is my youngest brother. And my first brother, Shaul, also was married in the synagogue. What I think was beautiful in the synagogue is that our rabbi used to give an hour learning session every afternoon before Ma'ariv and whatever is the one before that. Yeah. They used to call me from the tennis court when they don't have 10 people for minyan, and I have to run there. So I learned a lot about Ketuvim, Nevi'im, Torah, and everything. It was really nice. The next one, just to show a nice family, and you see the grandparents here, and you see the children, and you see grandchildren. But I want to show this for a reason, that we used to dress very nicely, no different than we are here. So people used to think maybe we are a little backwards or something. But in 1953, and even before that, women dressed short sleeve, and you see here, and it was really nice. As Israel was declared a state, this is in May 15, 1948. So the situation worsened for the Jews. During senior year at Shamash High School, again, I remember I was 2 years even younger, I needed a passport to go study. I told my father, I do not want to be in business. I really want to study science. And so I needed an Iraqi passport. And my brother, Eliyahu, who is older than I am, and who he applied to be in medical school, and he couldn't even get accepted. So we decided to hire a Muslim and paid him money. With bribes, you can get anything. So we hired him, who knows people in the government, and he was going to get us passports. It didn't take very long that I just came back from school, and 2 policemen were waiting for me. They handcuffed me, and without a word, without reason, without anything, and took me away. My mother was devastated. My father wasn't even home. And they took me to a prison which was tiny, and concrete floor, like very dirty, and there was a hole to be used, and there were 2 men also in the room with me. And I think that was what you call the holding prison. It took a day or a day and a half, and then suddenly I was taken, handcuffed with 2 policemen. I was handcuffed with this hand, 1 policeman, or handcuffed with this, another policeman, and they took me on a small, it's like open in the back, and we were sitting in the back, and we were driven to a high security prison. What is very bad for me, as I felt, I told you that my barber used to be on that Rashid Street, and that's where we were stop and go on the street. And he was standing in front of his shop, and he pointed at me and he said, "What's wrong?" I said, I don't know, you know. So I was in bad shape. So apparently we were 13 people, Jewish people, who were arrested when I was arrested. One of them was also my brother. They were all trying to get passports to go abroad. And when I was in this prison, those prisoners used to keep walking to get exercise. They used to come to my ears and say, "Who did you kill? And why are you here?" And I will never tell them anything. I mean, because if you stalk, it goes above, and I'll be in deeper trouble. So it took 9 days total. At the beginning, I was a day and a half, and then another 7 days I was in prison. Each one of those 13 people hired a very important lawyer, and they were able to get us out, and also bribing a little bit. And then after that, it took 7, 8 months until they were able to finish as to why we were, to bring us to a tribunal, 3 judges. So the 13 lawyers brought us one day before we go to the tribunal, the second day, and they said, "I want you to stand like this." And they pointed to me. They say, "Especially you. I want you to come with a short sleeve shirt, a short pants, a nice shoes that is clean, and you are nicely hair." And then they said, they stood us in age. I was the youngest on the right, and there was a woman on the left, and she was 83 years old with a cane and couldn't even walk. And he said, "We want you there," just like that. So the second day, I left to go to this tribunal. My mother was praying for me, and she said, "Everything will be right, everything will be okay." She prays so much. I've never seen a woman pray so much in her life. So we go to the court, And then the prosecutors kept saying, these are Jews that are really trying to overcome the government. They forged signatures of the Minister of Defense and whatever. And then the lawyers afterwards did their own speech, and they said, look at this little boy here. And they pointed at me. Does he look like he's the type who can actually overturn a government? And he said, look at the other side, the woman who is 83 years old, and she needed medical help. That's why she needs to go abroad. Do you think she is the one? So it took a few hours and whatever, and we were able to leave, and we were not killed, but we were fined heavily, I can say that. So they wanted to censor it here. They said this is not good to show, but I thought we should show it, because at that time we were, for any reason, they catch you, and if they don't agree with you on anything, within a week you will be hanged, and they will hang them right in the center of Baghdad to show it to the other Muslims that that's how we punish the Jews. This is a gift. I didn't have it 2 weeks ago, and October 15, my nephew, who is now, he is Shaul's brother, and I will talk about Shaul because he was killed. He sent it to me, and this Sefer Torah belonged to Saddam Hussein. I will say a few words about Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein loved the Jews and hated the Jews badly. Why did he love the Jews? His mother was pregnant, and she wanted to kill herself while she was pregnant. And next door to them was a nice Jewish woman, and she saved her, and the baby was born, and she used to even take care of Saddam. So that's why he actually loved the Jews. And we think, and I'm still researching this, we think this Sefer Torah came differently or the same time, I don't know. But this was not in the basement and was not in water. So this woman, Lillian, gave it to Havat Shalom Synagogue in Great Neck on October 15. I will find out more about it. But why I'm showing it? At that time, there were only 2 synagogues left in Baghdad. It's my father's synagogue, the Shamash synagogue, and Meir Tweg synagogue. So this Sefer Torah could be from my synagogue, and this is where Shaul, my brother, who was very religious, used to read Torah, because by that time some of the Jews left, and he used to be even the shochet for chickens and so on. Let me see what's next. Now I would like to talk about the Exodus. I know there's going to be somebody who will talk about it next week. But in 1950, the Prime Minister, and his name is Tawfiq al-Suwaidi, and he made a law to the parliament, and they approved it, that the Jews can leave Iraq. And they have to come and register, and they didn't tell us what's going to happen. All they said, they have to register and they would leave Iraq. They didn't even tell us we're going to go to Israel. So and then that period of registration, I used to call it Tasqit, but that's what they call it here, Project Ezra and Nehemiah. The day that the Tasqit, or you sign your name that you're going to leave, at midnight, they closed all the businesses of the Jews, whether they were with the Tasqit or not. And they took all the bank accounts from them. They took all their homes, even though they were living there for a while, but they were not theirs anymore. So this is the trick they did to the Jews. And by that time, 120,000 Jews registered to leave. And those 120,000 Jews suffered a lot. because even when they leave and leave their homes and businesses and banks and so on. Now let's talk about me. They registered me to go because I said I wanted to go out abroad and study. So I was less than 18 years old. We each can have only one suitcase. So I got myself a trunk, metal trunk when you go to camp for children. And then I knew I may not even see my clothes or anything I put in the trunk when I go to the airport. So they made me dress up. So I had underwear and I had leggings for my feet and I had shorts. And then on top of the shorts I put long pants. And then I had sweater and a vest and coat and then an top coat and then a hat. And I am there. So I thought the best thing is to go with two cousins of mine who are older than mine to the same day. We arranged it to go to the airport. So we went in the same car. We were dropped in the same airport. And the two of my cousins were on one side under the tree, and then they put me on another side with a smaller group. That group went to Israel, the airplane took off during the day, and they were fine. Mine, from 10:30 in the morning, didn't leave to 10:30 at night. I had no water, no food, no nothing, and I was burning under the sun. Then we boarded the airplane that you see there, two-prop engine. And when you look at it, you actually see the oil fading in the sides of the aeroplane. So it's really very old. Then we got inside the aeroplane. There were no chairs in the aeroplane. They took the chairs out, and we were sitting there just like sheep. I swear to you, we were like sheep. And we were so hot, there's no air condition, nothing. And it took 3 hours to get to Israel. And I used to hit the window in the aeroplane, trying to break it so that I can get some breathing air, because I thought I was going to die right there. So then we landed in Israel. I kissed the ground that I am safe, and I was so happy. But I'm only going to say 2 words. I think they want me to stop and have you ask questions. They put us, they said, go into a big tent and dress. And they sprayed us with some white stuff in case we have some kind of something or another. And then they said, go to the next big tent and have a place to sleep. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to say this. At one time, this is how they used to take things from the Jews. My father, about 10 years before that, whatever, he bought a beautiful plantation next to Baghdad. And we used to go there on weekend and stay there and for 2 nights. And in 1961, the government came to him and they said, we want that plantation from you. And we're going to buy it. So they gave him $1,000 so that it is legit. And then they made it an army base. So I want to say this. I did not tell you how I ended up in the United States. Because even though I was I was refused to come to the United States 3 times. So I can tell people who are here, never give up. And to my grandchildren also, never give up. If you go through the front door and they don't let you, try again. If they don't let you come through the back door. So I did not tell you that on January 27, 1969, 9 Jews were hanged and charged for spying for Israel. I did not speak that on October 11, 1972, 2 Secret Service took, at 1:30 in the afternoon, took my oldest brother in Baghdad with 13 other prominent Jews, and we never heard from my brother since. We don't know whether he was killed, how he was killed, or anything. But if you go to Israel and go in one of the cities there, they have in the museum his picture and everything. His wife is still here. She wouldn't marry. And my mother told her to go, you are young, and she still wouldn't marry. I want to thank you very much. May God bless you, and to enjoy your children, grandchildren, parents. You made my life so good to listen to me today, and I thank you so much. I love you all.
After 1941, between 1941 and 1950, what was it like as far as safety? Having narrowly escaped.
But we were so good. We were entrenched in good businesses, the Jews, and we really didn't believe the war is going to come to, or Nazis is going to come to Iraq. That's one. And we were flourishing. My father was flourishing. If I may add here, my father was in good shape. And when he died, he really didn't die rich. And he was very rich. He left millions of dollars in Baghdad, in Iraq. And they claim...
They came to your house to try to kill the family because at that time, wasn't that June 1st, 1941?
Yes.
So after that, you were able to carry on.
Okay, I'll tell you how good it was. It was still good before the things changed heavily is 1948 when Israel became a country. For example, my second brother, Yaakov, my third brother, and he was able in 1947, he finished high school, or Shamash High School, and he got a passport, he got a visa to the United States, he came and studied in Middlebury College, and then he went to to medical school, and then he was in the Navy, and he is now, he was a thoracic surgeon, very prominent. So he was able to go, not like me, I couldn't even go anywhere, and I couldn't even come to the United States. So at that time that you're talking about, the Jews were free to do almost anything.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
One last question. Yeah. I have a real simple question. You mentioned the various holidays. Did you celebrate Hanukkah?
I forgot to put it, but Hanukkah was very important, and we have prayers and we have songs, just like on Passover. Would you believe we used to read the Haggadah from first page to the end, never miss a word, and like we say Haggadah, Haggadah, you know, and B'Threzuzeh, whatever, all these songs. So Hanukkah was also one of...
Very quickly. Last question. How many of your siblings are still alive?
All of us are alive except my brother Joe, who we don't know what happened to him. They are all in the United States, yes.